This is the story of how I used the sleight of mouth without really even knowing what it was back then. But I was just encountering or in a conflicting situation with a toxic person, a toxic friend, and I had to get out of it. But I didn't know really back then how to deal with that, and I figured it out on the spot, I guess. And only later, when I finally read the Sleight of Mouth books, I figured out, oh, this is what what I did. But it was really not an easy situation to be into, and those skills with conversational hypnosis, with Sleight of Mouth, they are really helpful for that, for getting yourself out of extremely negative situations, or situations where people don't believe in you and want to drag you down, or situations where you feel stuck and trapped by somebody and you have to get out. So it was back in 2016, I think, or 2015, somewhere around that. I was practicing NLP skills with a guy in my town. We knew each other from mutual acquaintances from college, in university. Not that we were friends, but we both wanted to develop NLP skills, practicing with some NLP manuals we had found online and studying Richard Bandler and stuff like that. And we wanted to practice with each other. In the beginning, it was going well, and a lot of the skills I acquired them during that phase because I had a practice partner. It was really great to go back and forth. But at some point, he just started to become extremely obsessive over specifically Sleight of Mouth, which is a fun coincidence. Not just Sleight of Mouth, but he was really having a big emphasis on that. He wanted to master that and to be able to use it with anyone at will. And he had always been kind of obsessive anyway, but when he was touching on that topic, he was like going over the edge of it has to be done right now. And I didn't really understand at this point. It was pretty curious, this change of behavior, or this, let's say, aggravation of behavior. And I was starting to sense some hyper negative energy coming from him, or like I was kind of suffocating when I was around him at this point. Whereas so far he was weird, but I guess I was weird too, and it was fine. From that point, it was really not just fine, it was really getting uncomfortable to be around him. I would only learn later, through other acquaintances, that he was in massive conflict with his dad, because there was a problem of not really being loved as a child, or really long story. Basically, he had a massive conflict with his dad. And I kind of always, or often had this type of father figure, or let's say I was seen as this type of father figure for many people. Maybe it was just a projection, I guess, because in the end, the point was that he was trying to develop sleight of mouth skills or conversational skills because he wanted to make his dad acknowledge that his dad had been wrong, and that his dad had been behaving in a bad way. His dad hadn't done the job that a daddy must do, because basically his brother had been favored into the family. Whole long story. Basically, I think it was just a projection of him trying to get me to admit something or help him with something, because he was kind of projecting his conflict with his dad on me. That is just an interpretation, but in any case, there was massive conflict and it was all linked. It was all linked together. His dad mastering Sleight of Mouth to prove his dad how much he had been dismissed during the childhood. Whatever the whole thing is, it was just coming down at the end to he was trying to push me to do the kind of exercises or to do the practice that would allow him to master Sleight of Mouth. And since I was sensing so much negative vibe from that type of exercises with him specifically, I was kind of reluctant and say, yeah, you know, I'm not really interested into working on that right now. I have other projects. Do that with whoever you want, just not me. I'm not available, basically. You don't say that in a bad way, just I'm not available. You know, I have stuff to do on my own. From there, he started to place blame on me, like blaming me in an extremely harsh way, telling me I was dismissing what's important. I was just running away from my dreams. I should study that more because this is a real skill to master into NLP, Sleight of Mouth. You have to master that. it was putting blame on me for something that basically I didn't owe anything to that guy. We had never signed any contract. We were not business partners. We hadn't any finances in common. Like, I had no contract with that guy, and I started to realize there is no point in me letting myself be blamed for something I don't really see how I am reliable for, or how do I have any kind of responsibility in that topic. Like, it's not my fault in any way. So it came down after like 2 or 3 arguments, I think, to a moment like at his place during a night, I think it was the evening, after a whole 2-hour rant of basically all the things I just enumerated, but 2 hour long, finishing by, in the end, he was just blaming me for I'm not helping him enough, I'm not doing enough for him. And I, at some point, had a huge sense of letting go. Those are the moments where those things happen just randomly because you are in the situation and your nervous system is just calculating, okay, how the hell do I get out of this? I had a deep sense of letting go, and I figured out I just gotta cut relationships with that guy. I just have to cut the roots, definitely, finally, with that guy. He is extremely negative. It's been 3 times. I just feel extremely bad in his presence, and I feel 10 times worse after leaving his place than just before entering. At some point, I don't want to be around that anymore. So I had a huge sense of letting go, which was curious. I had never really experienced that in that type of context before. And I thought, okay, I gotta just put an end to this, and I just let him finish one of his rants. 10 minutes later, of him talking and talking and talking, and I said, yeah, in a very calm way, I said, yeah, you know what? What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to get up, I'm going to stand up, I'm going to leave by that door right here, and you're never going to see me ever again. Which was a consequence pattern. I would only learn that later, putting the situation to an end, to a consequence for this matter. I did that. He started overreacting, obviously, because it was impossible to let that go. He wanted me to force me to doing what he wants. And I said, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'm full of shit. Yeah, you're perfectly right. You have the right to blame me. I'm not doing what I should do, what I'm supposed to do. That's fine. Nonetheless, I'm going to go through that door, I'm going to leave. Started taking all the books I had given to him, because it was stuff I had to get back anyway. Putting all the books in my bag, said, I'm gone. And he said something, and he attacked with something like, you see, you are evading your own problems. And I said, sure, I do. I evade my own problems. Bye. And I left. And I never saw that guy again. And I even had to shake a little bit. It was kind of a lot of negative energy, like all around me. I had to really shake and really remove all of that. It was kind of a really tough tension during that whole phase. Once I left, I noticed I should have even done that earlier, because it was just massive negative energy. But that is a big concept in the end. Whatever you feel uncomfortable with somebody, just question, what positive value am I getting from that interaction, that relationship, or with that person? If the answer is none, nothing, then why do you stay with that person? Why do you allow that person to have to rent your mental space with worry? Once I left, I felt way better. Well, let's say once I figured out I would never see that person again, once I made the decision I would never see that person again, I felt way better. And I understand it might be more tricky when you have other mutual friends, you're supposed to keep seeing that person. But even with that, I would argue that it is still more an internal resolution, because once you don't feel tied to that person anymore, even if that person will try to bark and keep getting you back into a very negative loop, once you have resolved the situation internally, you don't feel trapped anymore. And when you don't feel trapped anymore, a toxic person will just be looking out for another victim, which won't be you anymore. And I would like to conclude this little story with some quote I saw recently I think is really on point about being authentic in your relationships. It is from T.L. Swan. One of the best ways to figure out how to express authentically is to ask yourself, what is the opposite of being defensive in this scenario? Whatever you are trying to defend is in fact the vulnerability that you need to be authentic about. Relative to authenticity, expression is about telling the whole truth, not just parts of it. And that includes a whole range of emotions. So basically, of course, you will feel maybe vulnerable or defenseless in some cases, but instead of running away from that, starting to lean into that feeling and listening for what this feeling has to tell you is really a key component, I think, of selecting the right relationships and getting yourself out of all the toxic relationships you may have felt trapped into up to this point. If you are interested in that, there is a small document in the description about Sleight of Mouth and about how to deal with toxic or negative people, and also about how to help others when you find people who legitimately want to be helped and who are not really toxic, at least not to you, how to help them with Sleight of Mouth. It is in the description, it is for you, and it is completely free.